United Spinal Association's Pathways to Employment program gives wheelchair users the tools they need to succeed in finding the job they want through building job search skills and mentoring. I'm Annette Bourbonnier from Nothing Without Us, Stories and Discussions of Meaningful Inclusion. I am a 70-ish-year-old woman with short gray hair, and these are dark rimmed eyeglasses, and I sit in a power wheelchair. If you like these episodes, please tell me. Leaving comments and telling your friends about this podcast are the best way to help me grow. Of course, leaving a like helps too, makes me feel good. You can subscribe for free. There are paid subscriptions that offer more, including the Bitch on Wheels subseries, but content like today's are accessed through free subscriptions. Well, today I am honored to have as a guest uh, Leslie St. Louis from he is the Director of Employment and DEI Programs from United Spinal. Hi, Leslie, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, good to have you here.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
So United Spinal, he's in charge of the program called Pathways to Employment, and it supports wheelchair users in pursuing job opportunities, and it provides information, and there are a great deal of things, as well as providing support to employers who are looking to recruit and onboard employees with disabilities, or have just had a qualified individual with a disability apply, and they want to make sure they, set it up properly for them. So, Leslie, why don't you just give a quick blurb about what United Spinal is, first of all? Describe the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So United Spinal's main mission is to support our members, wheelchair users, in improving their overall quality of life. So whether we're speaking about employment, we're speaking about medical concerns, housing, financials, right? All those things, all the pillars that make us successful. So that's what really the focus is on United as a whole for United Spinal, is to make sure that we maintain and help our members either improve or maintain their quality of life.
That's great. How long have you been with United Spinal?
I've been with United Spinal July 2022,
Okay,
so just almost 3 years.
almost a year?
Almost 3 years.
3 years, yeah. Okay.
Correct.
So, all right. I'm the math person. That's why I asked that.
Yep,
So,
it'll be 3 years in July.
right. Okay, that's great. So let's talk about your role there, and with what Pathways to Employment is, and how does it work? What do you offer your members in this regard?
Yeah, absolutely. So our focus for our members is to educate, support, and empower them on how to prepare for employment opportunities. So the way that we do that is we have three main programs that we are currently running. One is the work readiness program for those who are looking for a more traditional career. So we cover topics such as resume writing, interviewing skills, reasonable accommodation, disclosure of disability. So it's a 13-week program that goes through those various stages of employment search. And at the end of that program, we offer a certification of completion, as well as for those who qualify, some financial support in order to successfully pursue employment opportunities. The other program that we have is our entrepreneurial program, which is our newer program that focuses on, or that supports our members rather, in their business building or aspirations. So for those who are not looking, or in addition to traditional support, how do we help them build their own businesses? And that's about a 9 or 10 month program. And then the last program that we have is our employment resource group, where it's a general conversation on what supports resources are out there that can either help you um, pursue traditional employment or pursue entrepreneurial opportunities, and as well as what are factors around employment that may um, create an additional barrier. So one of our first conversations that we had was mental health and employment, and
Mhm.
what are the intersectionalities or impacts that mental health can have while you search for employment. I know myself, searching for employment was the most anxiety pressured moment that I
Yeah,
experienced. So I want to be able to support our members um,
right. Is
within
that
that
where the
journey.
mentorship comes in this area?
That's correct. So the peer mentoring program, which doesn't sit directly under employment, however, through these different the three different programs, is what I find is what happens is organic peer support,
Right. Yeah.
because we have people within different stages of their life that offer their life experience to those who are just starting out or those who are newly injured, right? So it's more of a organic to the point I just made, mentoring environment.
Right. You mentioned something and it kind of makes me chuckle, but it is part of the system and it's part of what we do. But you mentioned like disability disclosure, and I'm there like, yeah, when we roll into a room, there's not much more we have to say. Oh yeah, I'm disabled. You didn't know that, did you? You know, it's kind of a it's it's not like we, you know, I mean, we don't have to talk about it for sure, but
Yeah,
it's obvious.
yeah,
We, you know, wheelchair users have the pretty obvious disability. I mean, it is what it is, and we've learned, even though we've learned to cope, it comes as a shock sometimes to people. But at least we don't have to decide when we're going to disclose. Boom, it's there. It's right in front of you. So, you know, I'm guessing questions may come up though afterwards. Some of the questions that are unnecessary, like, how did you get, you know, was it an accident? And I'm there like, nope, did it on purpose. You know, that's when I'm being flipped. But I haven't done that in a job interview, but I have done it. You know, you know, those kinds of probing questions, we don't really have to talk about them. You know, I find I like to switch the topic back. So yeah, that's, you know, I'm a wheelchair user and then go back to, but this is what I have to offer you as an employer. And that emphasis in the interview of, you know, these are my skills. This is what I have to offer you. And you know, you're going to find that because of this and my problem solving skills and this, I'm going to be the best employee you ever had. Um, and you know, that positive push for, you know, what it is you're selling, because an interview is selling yourself and your skills. Um, so, but I do like that we have to still deal with disclosure. You know, I have a quirky sense of humor, which is why I bring this up. But you know, you know, it is, you know, kind of an interesting thing to look at. Now, do you end up connecting? Well, I know you said you know you talk about barriers, and those barriers are considerable, and we also have to be honest about the reality that overcoming the barriers and asking for accommodations, especially if we turn around and get resistance, that takes an emotional toll. So the mental health aspect, I think, is a real important thing for you to be discussing. Do you have special ways that you go through that, or how do you address that in the groups?
Yeah, I think not being, a professional, although I did take one or two classes in social work because that was my first aspirations, and then I found vocational rehab
Yeah,
career. But so not being too technical about it, but having a conversation. I believe that mm, the best way for us to understand, I guess, or to approach it is to see different perspectives. So for myself, being a person who uses a wheelchair, and even in how I say that, some people say wheelchair user, some people say people with disabilities, right? So there are different even ways to even self-identify,
right.
right?
Yeah,
So, uh, and me, being also being born with spina bifida, right? So this is the only life that I do know
yeah,
versus somebody maybe who was newly injured or injured. Um, but the point being is that um, learning from others on how they tackle this question. And understanding your rights when you go into an interview or go into any
mm,
circumstance, right? How do you protect yourself? And how do you not make yourself vulnerable? Um, how do you make yourself vulnerable? How do you not make yourself vulnerable, right?
right,
So the point I want to make basically is when I'm educating or speaking to our members is disclosure of disability is not required by any stretch of the imagination.
right, right,
However, reasonable accommodation is a tool in place that
yeah,
is going to help you succeed
yeah,
in your career or job. So
absolutely.
even though it is not required, it is almost necessary for you
Right,
to bring to the table if needed. And
right,
understanding that it's not a one and done.
right,
So you don't have to um, request a reasonable accommodation day one. As your career progresses, your capacity may change, and you
right,
may need a reasonable accommodation at that. So point being is that, and just because you request a reasonable accommodation doesn't mean you disclose a disability. So, for example, when my previous position, I had to go to the office, which was on the third floor. So my reasonable accommodations were how accessible is the bathroom? Where's the location of the bathroom? Something that I would never even think about, two things actually I would never think about unless I have that lived experience was parking. There was plenty of accessible parking in the area, but it was also accessible to everyone.
right,
So, which means that it wasn't useful for me. So I
right,
requested with my hiring manager, um, I brought up the situation and I said, is there a way that we can solve this? Because it's creating a barrier for me to get to work,
yeah,
especially with weather conditions. I'm in New York, so weather conditions change a lot, especially in the
yeah.
winter.
I'm in Rhode Island, so I know
Oh,
what you mean.
there you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. Right. So,
yeah,
and it was outdoor parking. So I said,
right,
how can we come to an understanding, basically, and they gave my own parking space
right,
as a reasonable accommodation.
yeah,
So these are different things that you need to think about is or what we discussed just yesterday actually during the employment resource group was what we want to try to prevent in our careers is a question of productivity.
yeah.
That,
That's
you know,
us. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
And
we
it,
already
it,
come in with the question, we already come in to the situation of that being the elephant in the room, right?
right. I
So
know.
we don't want to confirm that stigma,
And,
if that makes sense.
and most of the time, people with disabilities are quite productive. That's not usually a problem in reality. When the data, here I go, the data would show that it's not. a general problem, but we do have to get that out of other people's minds for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not about, for me personally, again, and these conversations are very personal.
right,
So myself, and what I talk about in the different programs is not to lead with your disability.
right,
No,
right, right.
it's your when you're talking about employment, you have to prioritize what you're talking about, and
Yeah,
it's education, it's professional experience, or it's paid versus unpaid experience, and then
right,
to elevate that conversation is your lived experience,
right,
which includes being a person with a disability.
right.
So for example, I might include, or if I'm speaking to a person or an interviewer, and I know that they have a young child, right?
Yeah,
And I'm applying for a an education position, right?
yep,
I might want to bring up, I'm a father of two young children. So now, see, and that has nothing to do with my disability.
right, exactly.
That's just creating a camaraderie or a relationship there.
But it's also taking away a bit of the stigma in a very natural, organic way.
Correct.
Because it's saying, oh, well, this is just a regular guy who just gets around a little differently. Yes, you're right.
Correct. So it's not the disability doesn't define you,
Right,
right? It's a part of your day to day.
right. Mm.
Just like if you have to, and I don't want to simplify it by any stretch of the imagination because I know some people's disabilities are more severe than others,
Oh,
and the recovery is different for everyone,
oh, yeah,
right? So I
yeah,
don't want to simplify it by any stretch of
yeah,
the imagination, but what I want to, the message I'm trying to really convey is that there's a bigger picture,
yeah.
and the disability is part of that picture or part of that narrative.
Thank you for listening to part one of my discussion with Leslie St. Louis from United Spinal Association. He has so much information to offer that I've broken the content down into three parts. I'm Annette from Nothing Without Us. If you like this episode, please tell me in the comments or by leaving a like, and listen to the next part of my conversation with Leslie. I'm still working on my first 100 subscribers, and I'm told that people leaving comments or likes will help make this happen. So while subscriptions are free, you can see my new sub-series, Bitch on Wheels, on the ally or activist tiers. This sub-series is a little edgier, maybe sarcastic, angry, or humorous. So tell your friends they can find Nothing Without Us on patreon.com/nothingwithoutus, on YouTube and Spotify. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Blue Sky. So until the next Nothing Without Us, I'm Annette.